Mikko! Congratulations, 200 subscribers. Awesome. Dope. Seems like we all sooner or later hit that mark. Congratulations, you're the man. Watch your videos all the time. Love this thread question, although it's a really hard question. Only because, like, kind of like Greeno's response, you kind of start to think about it, and then you think about all the, like, the landmark stuff that you really don't want to leave out. And there's so much of that in my life that means more than, like, the records I bought, as opposed to, like, the records that meant something and had, like, an influence on what I would listen to in future, in the future. I don't even really know where to start, but I am going to start with one record, and I think this is perfectly fitting to start with this record. American Beauty by the Grateful Dead. My mom and stepdad at the time were huge Grateful Dead fans. This was one of the records I remember being spun a lot. Also for The Faithful and a couple other ones, but this was the one that, like, she would put on when I go to bed at night. Like, she'd put this record on for me, and, I'd pass out listening to Grateful Dead. Little kid, you know what I mean? And it meant a lot to me. This is actually the original copy, the one that I had since I was a kid. I don't even have another copy of it. This is the only copy I have, and it's still the original one, and it's an amazing fucking record. It's probably one of the Grateful Dead's best studio albums to date, or, well, they ain't making nothing else anytime soon, but that really played, I think, a huge role in just my love for rock and roll, psychedelic music, and anything that involved a guitar or, real music. Some other ones I can think of right off the bat that really played big influences are these couple records here. And I mean, there's a lot of them, but these are the few, like, you have to remember, well, you don't obviously remember, but, it was my mom and my stepdad and my dad and my grandparents, my grandmom, basically, and a little bit of my aunt and a little bit of my grandfather. Now, my grandfather liked, like, oldies, you know what I mean? So he was always listening to oldies radio stations, so, I picked up a lot of that from him. My aunt was into, like, the 80s scene, like the 80s, more pop stuff, and she also had 2 boxes of 45s, which is over there right now, and I'll run and get it just for the hell of it. This is the actual box when I was a kid. This is the actual box with the exact 45s that were in it, except for I cleaned them and sleeved all of them. There was 2 of these, and I mean, just to pull out some of them, you got, I'm gonna try to find some stuff you guys might know. What do we got here? Frigid Pink, there's, I mean, just tons of stuff, and it's all across the board. The tea set, My Bella Amy, or and then Angels Coming in Holy Night. Just a ton of different types of music. Ray Stevens, Everything is Beautiful. You got the Monkees in here, Beach Boys, Frigid Pink, obviously, the Mills Brothers. And these are, I would sit, and this is all I had, was this and the other box, and then whatever else I had floating around. I remember at the time, somebody got me this, which was the Superman records. This is one of the first records I had as a kid, and I recently just found it again. I didn't have it anymore, but that was really cool, just to find that. I still remember listening to that as a kid. But we're going to get on to the early influences, and these records, I mean, really, when I think of early influences, are the first records that I actually had as a kid. These definitely are the ones. There might be a couple other ones that I might be missing, but mainly these are it. The first record, I remember, now this was a little bit later in my years, but when I started getting into more rock and roll and stuff, but I remember at the same time, like around the Grateful Dead era, when I was like 8 or 7 or whatever, years old, my stepdad had a bunch of records, and he had, you know, your AC/DCs and your Kiss and your Grateful Deads and your, you know, whoever. But there was one record that I really, 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 really liked, and it was because someone used a sample of it in a song I heard on the radio. My mom said, "Oh, that's Steve Miller Band," and I went and sought after this record here, "Fly Like an Eagle," out of his collection. I took it and I listened to it over and over and over and over again. This is probably one of my favorite records of all time. I mean, literally all the way through. This thing is amazing. You know, Wild Mountain Honey, one of my favorite songs. Fly Like an Eagle, obviously. Serenade, Dance, 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 Mercury Blues, Take the Money and Run, Rockin' Me, You Send Me. I mean, this thing, Sweet Marie, you just can't, you can't get better than this. If you're into Southern blues rock, whatever you want to label this as, rock and roll, classic rock, whatever, you've got to get this record. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people have this in their collection, but if you don't, oh my God, it's a must. It's a must-have. End of story. I'm gonna flip my Majesty's Request really quick, and so we can keep on the journey of my musical history. Now, like I said, my mom had like her own collection as opposed to my stepdad's stuff, so I'd go through her stuff more because I was allowed to. This was one of the records she had. This is American Graffiti soundtrack. Obviously, it's a gatefold. It folds out. This is just, you know, obviously songs from the movie American Graffiti. I mean, the Beach Boys, Chuck Berry, Monotones, the Big Boppers, the Platters, Buddy Holly. You know, I mean, the list goes on and on. Chuck Berry, the Skyliners, the Flamingos, the Fleetwoods, the Heartbeats, Frankie Lyman, the Starlighters. I mean, it just, the Crest, it just goes on and on. One of the greatest compilations of 50s rock music ever compiled. This is just an amazing album, and it was one that influenced me a great deal when I was a young kid, and it was one that I spun constantly. I now own 3 copies of this, one original sealed, which is really proud of that. It wasn't expensive, it was like 20 bucks, but you know, it's nice to have a sealed copy of one of these records that really influenced my musical stylings. Another one, and I know kind of weird, but West Side Story. This was one that was always in her collection. It was one that we always harkened back to. You know, if me and my mom are talking about records, we always talk about the West Side Story soundtrack. You know, I love like Cool, Play It Cool Like That, and a couple other ones too, Maria, and just some of the greater songs on here. And it was a movie that I really enjoyed too. So that was another one. My big love for Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 and just Jackson as a kid mainly came from my mom's collection. Now, I only have one. I have all of them, but I have one here to show you. This is Ben from the movie soundtrack, Ben. And obviously, Ben, the two of us, we look no more. We both found what we were looking for. That song. Just an amazing Michael Jackson song. And, I mean, Jackson was the man back then. I mean, you know, I enjoyed his music throughout his career, but if there's any part of his career that I enjoyed more, it was definitely the Jackson 5 years. You know, him being a little kid, he was just so full of life and just an amazing performer and just a great singer. I mean, especially for his age. But this was one that was in her collection. And then she also had the greatest hits with the Golden Around thing, which I also have that in my collection. But those two were predominantly what started me really big on Michael Jackson. There was a time in my younger years where I literally had a shrine at my tape and record player that it was just Michael Jackson everywhere. All on the wall, tapes, CDs, compilations, anything Jackson, Jackson 5, movies, Moonwalk, video games. I mean, literally, the guy was, at that point in time, it was Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson. You know, for me, it was like 2 MJs, and I was in love with both of them, man. And I just remember constantly listening to Michael Jackson. And but anyway, at my couple more that were in her collection that really like had me always spinning them. That was the Beach Boys. Now this is just one of them. Obviously she had Surfing USA and a couple other ones, but this is the Beach Boys today, and this has, you know, some of their greater songs, some of their really good songs on here. Obviously, Help Me Rhonda, Kiss Me Baby Do You Want to Dance, Don't Hurt Me My Little Sister, Please Let Me Wander, you know, Dance, Dance, Dance. I mean, it's just an amazing album. But Beach Boys, you know, were one of those bands that I really enjoyed. Loved that surf rock style that they have had, and it just, you know, was one of those other ones. Now, you can't really bring up the Beach Boys without bringing up the Monkees, because in a way, the Monkees and the Beach Boys were somewhat similar. Same thing with the Beatles. Now, the Beatles weren't as predominant in my family. Like, they were there in 45s and stuff, but never no LPs for some reason. I never really seen too many Beatles LPs. I know my mom might have had one or two. She did. She had one or two, but I didn't listen to them as much for some reason as the Monkees and the Beach Boys. I don't know why, but in my later years, I became a huge Beatles fan. But anyway, the Monkees, and this was one of the ones, you know, that she had, obviously, like, all their pretty, this is just one hell of a record. So that was one. And then another one that was really in my life, too, in the beginning, was the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The music from this album was just a huge influence, I think. I mean, on my musical taste, I think, to be honest. Another one that I failed to, like, kind of mention, and now speaking of Rocky Horror Picture Show, for some reason it made me think of it, and I definitely got to show it because it does mean a whole hell of a lot to me. And if I can find it, give me 1 second. Pretty sad that I can't find it right off the bat. Excuse my butt. It's always hanging out. No, but actually, absolutely have to show this record, so no matter how long it takes me to find it, I'm going to find it and show it to you, because it's probably another one of those, I mean, not probably, most definitely another one of those records that, literally had such an influence on my musical appreciation. Everything that, you know, I ever picked up from that point on, you know, I based a lot of, you know, and it's weird because, there we go, I found it, here we go. And we had both of these. My mom had both of these growing up, and, okay, so she had both of these records. I think the black one here is still her original. I ended up getting another white one because we really wore those copies out. You know, and obviously this is just an amazing album. Okay, sorry. So she had these two, and these were huge. I mean, these were huge in her collection, and they were two of my favorites, and I would put them on all the time. And that's obviously A Night at the Opera by Queen. And then she also had A Day at the Races. And, you know, I always loved this one a little bit more, but I mean, both of them pretty much equally. Two great records by one of the most amazing performers and artists, you know, Freddie Mercury, in history of rock and roll. Queen being, you know, just one of the greatest bands ever, and influenced my musical preferences throughout my entire life. Also, the first records I owned, besides the 45s, the first records that I owned, my Aunt Holly, we were leaving. My stepdad and my stepdad and my mother broke up, and we were moving back to her dad's house, and my aunt gave me a stack of records out of her own collection and wrote her name and my name on the front of each one, which kind of irritates me in my later age. But I look back, and if she would have never gave these records to me, you know, maybe there would have been a lack of like for certain types of music. So I'm just going to show a couple of those to you, the ones I could find. You got Nazareth, Expect No Mercy, and as you can see, where at right there, you can see my name. She wrote Casey on it in a pen. Also, Frank Marino and the Mahogany Rush, right there, to Casey from Holly. And another one, David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. And you can see right there, to Casey from Holly. And last but not least, I think the best one out of them, well, maybe not the best one, but the one I kind of clung to a little bit more than any other one, right there, Alice Cooper. You know, Welcome to My Nightmare. And this is an original copy. It sucks because this is the only copy I have, and it's got this big name on it. But in a way, the cool thing about it is, like, it's the history of it in my musical, you know, life, you know. So, anyway, then it was my grandmom's house. Now my grandmom, and now see, also my grandfather. Now my grandfather, in his closet, he had a bunch of 45s. And they were all like soul, funk, oldie stuff, and just oldies, you know what I mean? So I had a lot of influence from that too, because I would sit and grab them and I'd listen to them. But also, I go up to my grandmom's all the time, and her husband had a huge record collection. I mean, not as huge as like this, but at the time, if you're not a collector, you know, basically like big for just a, you know, regular music listener, he had a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, at least a whole big row of just, you know, there was country in there, and we have a lot of them downstairs now. I still actually have almost his whole collection. The couple ones that really influenced me, the two that influenced me the most out of that collection was because my grandma always played them, was the Shangri-Las, Leader of the Pack. That and the fact that when I was like 7, I was riding motorcycles, so this cover really influenced me too. Plus I thought this girl right here was super, super sexy. I thought those two looked like dudes, but I always thought she was really hot. And, you know, obviously, Leader of the Pack being one of the coolest songs of all time. And then there was, you know, you can't really leave out my musical past without mentioning the man, Elvis fucking Presley. Now, a lot of people want to talk shit. He didn't write his song, this and that. Dude was one of the greatest performers of all time. Someone 41, you know what I'm talking about. You know, it's not about writing the music. It's about performing it and, you know, being a good musician. And he was just that. And he was an icon. And this is actually an original pressing. It's the one, it even has my my grandmom's husband's name, Eric, right here in the E, right there in pencil. But I kept it on there. I could get it off, but I kept it off. And he actually numbered all of his, put a little piece of tape, and on each piece of tape, this was number 15 out of his collection. So it's really cool to have the original one that I had growing up, that she used to put on for me all the time. I actually still have the turntable, the exact turntable that they used too. So, getting a little bit further into time, my mom took me to a Boscov's, which is a department store, and I've mentioned this before, and she let me pick out 3 records, and they were phasing out records at the time. They were all 99 cents, and they were on sale, and they were phasing out records to make way for tapes and CDs, a lot more, you know, tapes and CDs at this time. And the 3 records I chose out of the bin was actually a 12-inch of this. I only have the 45 now, but it looks exactly the same. So basically, just imagine this, a 12-inch. The Fat Boys Twist with Chubby Checker. So I picked that out. Then I picked out Phil Collins' No Jacket Required, which ended up being a really great album. And this is the one with, I think, Susu Studio on it, and Don't Lose My Number. I mean, just an amazing album, Phil Collins. I mean, just a really cool-looking... You know, I know it's just his face, but you know what I'm talking about. Just an iconic image, you have to admit. Then the other one, and I think the one that really, really, really did it for me and got me into more metal and got me listening to, like, I remember picking up Dr. Feelgood. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into this because we haven't got that far yet. But let me just show this first. Obviously, Twisted fucking Sister, Come Out and Play. This was so awesome. I remember... just the feeling of having this record, something about it, just, I can't even explain it, but it was just like that. You knew you were a growing up thing, and you felt like kind of badass because you had it, and I just remember looking at this graffiti on the back. That really, this album started my love for graffiti, and later on in life, that would be like something that I really did a lot. I was a big-time graffiti artist when I was in my teens, but this kind of paved the way. Also, you know, like songs on here, like Come Out and Play, and... Be Cruel to Your School. I mean, you know, this might have developed my attitude as a kid too. I mean, this definitely helped. And this is the original lift up thing. I'm not going to lift it up because the hands are disconnected, and I don't. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to lift it up. I mean, everybody, you know, everybody loves to see this. Twisted Sister, come out and play. So it's kind of hard to find the ones that the hands are still connected. I mean, it's fine. It's in perfect shape. It's just the hands are, you know, they came all. That happens with all of them, but. It's hard to find. You know, I want to get it. There was a sealed copy at my shop a little bit ago, and it was semi-cheap because they're really not expensive. I should have picked it up because I really would like to get a sealed copy of this. This is one of my favorite records, and it was, you know, it was definitely a landmark, and it was literally one of the first records I've ever owned that is actually mine. So that was cool. Then, like, moving on, I had this on cassette. I remember this being. I mean, I'm trying to think back to like the earliest cassettes. Now, I don't know where I got it from. I only have the vinyl now, but I got this Metal for Breakfast on cassette, and I had it, and I loved it. I mean, it has I mean, just listen. There's no way you can't love this. I mean, you got Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent. Probably, you know, I don't really like Nugent, but like Cat Scratch Fever at the time, I was loving it. Killer Dwarves, Accept, Merciful Fate, Blotto, The Ripper by Judas Priest, Quiet Riot, Mental Health, Crazy Train, Ozzy. I mean, the list goes on and on with really good, and this is a great metal compilation. One of the coolest ones to have because the cover is just so fucking cool. And then he like puts his head in the bowl here on the back, which is pretty cool. And I always just love that. So that was one. And then like, you know, as you know, I was still listening to like R&B and soul and funk and stuff, and I was listening to metal, and I was like dibble-dabbling in hip-hop. My mom picked me up a VHS. It was called MTV Club Party to Go Volume 1. It had MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, it had Tony Tone, it had Paula Abdul, it had Humpty Dance is the chant, Digital Underground. It had the Candyman, which was a really good song. Ooh, but I love you so. Never ever. And they took that from someone else, but you know what I'm talking. And there was just a bunch of other shit on there. There was some new wave on there, a bunch of stuff. So that really got me started in like listening to stuff like that. And I remember being out, and my mom picked me up Vanilla Ice. Now before Vanilla Ice, I had Run DMC, Raising Hell. But, you know, she wanted to get me this because it was a white guy rapping instead of black dudes rapping. I mean, she's not a racist person, but I think she thought I would really like this considering he's white and it might influence me, which it did. It did influence me. You know, in my teenage years, I wrote raps and I rapped with my friends and I was really good at it. So it did influence me. That and also I remember getting Dr. Dre The Chronic on tape, being one of my first real cassettes that I owned. That, Bone Thugs and Harmony, their first record. And the reason why I picked up Bone Thugs and Harmony, their first record, is because I was really into Eazy-E. This was one of the first albums I also had rap and gangster rap. Before, you know, all that, I had this. And Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style and stuff like that, obviously. I mean, every kid had that. Warren G, Regulators. But this thing really played an influence in my rap, I think, influences. I remember going to this tape shop or the tape store, the record store at the mall, and seeing Bone Thugs and Harmony, and it said featuring Eazy-E at the top, and that's the reason why I got it. It just so happens that no one knew who Bone Thugs and Harmony were at that time, and they were just like this new group, and I was literally the first person, probably, I mean, who knows, ever, to pick up their tape. I mean, really, the minute it came out, I remember getting it just because it said Eazy-E at the top, and no one knew who they were, and then they ended up going on to be one of the, like, really one of the greatest rap groups of all time, I think. I remember my dad didn't know what to get me for my birthday one year, and I remember he knew I liked Michael Jackson, but he didn't like the fact that it's all I listened to, because really at the time I was just, like, listening to Michael Jackson constantly. So he picked me up a Belle Biv DeVoe CD, and it just so happens Poison became one of my favorite songs too. And that was on the MTV Club Party to Go VHS that my mom got me. So it all kind of went together. Now I'm going to show some singles just for the pure fact that, like, you talk about the first memories of buying music. Well, I remember going roller skating, and after roller skating we'd walk over to the mall and we'd buy these cassette singles and bring them back to the roller skating rink so that they could play our songs. And I just bought tons and tons of these. I'm a huge obsessive fan when it comes to cassette singles. I have hundreds of them. So, you know, I know there's shit I've left out. Like, I definitely know there's music and things that I've left out along the way. There's definitely some landmark stuff that, like my mom, for instance, on Easter one year, when this is one of the first tapes I ever had in my life, she put these little notes and Easter eggs, and I'd have to go try to find her the prize. And I remember her getting me fucking Like a Virgin by Madonna. Now, I don't know why the hell she was buying me Like a Virgin by Madonna. Also, there was a TV show called Gem. Gem, She's Truly Outrageous. If you're from the 80s, you might remember it. But there was a tape cassette that came with the dolls, and I used to bump the fuck out of that tape. Literally probably one of the first tapes I ever listened to myself as a kid. I remember being at my grandfather's house before school, watching that show, and my mom got me the dolls. Like, I don't know, I was playing with dolls. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit it at all. And if we're going to talk about really embarrassing, I know this kind of goes with embarrassing stuff too, but you know what, fuck it, because this is my musical history, and I'm proud of it, to be honest. I have to mention, and I literally have to, I mean, there's just no doubt about it, because if I don't, I am leaving out like one of a group that I really was into when I was a kid, and I know it's really weird and it's really fucking embarrassing. But don't get me wrong. At the same time, I was listening to metal and I was listening to all this other stuff. See, and that's kind of the thing, and kind of the forever echoing thing that goes throughout my life. I'm never into one type of music because, and I'm sorry, my internet is a piece of shit. My musical tastes are so vast, and I think the reason is because there was just so much different stuff as a kid. I was listening to metal, R&B, hip-hop, you know, you name it, I was listening to it. You know, even prog and stuff. I mean, I was listening to all of it. Psychedelic rock, you know, Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Kiss, AC/DC, you name it, Judas Priest, Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, EPMD, Beastie Boys. I mean, these were groups that, like, this is what I grew up on, you know what I mean? But this was one that I was influenced by a friend's sister that I was really in love with, and she had posters all over her room of this group, and I know it's weird because it's like, you know, I'm a dude, why would I listen to this shit? But the New Kids on the motherfucking block, and I still have tons of cassettes by them and some CDs that I picked up at Goodwill's along the way, just to kind of harken back and remember what, you know, I listened to this shit because I wanted to get in this girl's pants. I remember the best time was we were all laying in the waterbed late at night when I slept over at my friend's house, and she laid in the waterbed, and she was older than me, and I'm talking like 3 or 4 years older than me, and I remember her touching my, and it was awesome because I was like, wow, this girl who never talks to me in school because I'm so young is like laying next to me in a waterbed touching my, and I was just like, maybe listening to this actually paid off. So, you know, you can talk all the shit you want, but I got my dick touched because of these guys, alright? So, alright, but anyway, that's that. And then, like, also, okay, same friend, different family member, one of his cousins that lived 2 houses down from his crib, or his house, had this room. And when you went in it, it was like horror masks and metal pictures, and I remember looking at that room like, that's what I like that, you know what I mean? Like, I like that metal shit, and just all this Ozzy everywhere, and like upside down crosses, and just like, the dude was fucking like into the fucking metal, man. And I remember ever since seeing that kid's room, it was all about metal. I was like, metal, metal, metal. But like, I always kept, you know, in touch with pop and rap and everything else, like. And I think as I've grown older, I've learned to be able to really spread my musical tastes around and really kind of give everything a fair share, you know, no matter what it is. And really, I mean, literally, country, rock, rockabilly, psychedelic, prog, you know, everything. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go through the genres with you, grunge. I mean, and there was a time when, like, I remember, you know, the BMG music things. And, you know, you're young, you don't have money, so I used to fill them out, and we used to get them for free and never have to pay for them. It was awesome. I did it like 5 times. I remember the one time I got like a stack of Marilyn Manson CDs and a couple other really hard metal stuff that I couldn't really go to the store and buy because I didn't have the money to do it. And I remember getting all those CDs and just like, oh, the feeling of it. And I want to mention this Vanilla Ice one more time because I remember getting this, and there was a smell about it. I couldn't fucking put my finger on it, man. It was something about it, and that picture on the inside of him, and the smell. It just like, it was almost like, I can't even explain it. It was just like this really weird connection with this tape. And even though, you know, I look back, and it's not like the greatest music or anything, but it was just something about that period. I remember later on that year when Cool as Ice came out. It was a movie by Vanilla Ice. And my mom, there was a soundtrack to it, and I never heard it. And I remember watching the movie and really wanting the soundtrack. And she said, I'll get it for Christmas, but you can't have it till Christmas. We were at the store and she bought it and she went home and put it somewhere. I remember when she left, looking and scouring the entire house to find this CD just to hold it in my hands to look at it. And it's the same thing with like a lot of music as a kid, you know, whether it have been, you know, rap, metal, anything, really just music in general. You know, I really went through a lot of stages. Like, there was, you know, I always like, it was weird because I always had these times where I would kind of like hail to one person at a time. Like ICP, I went through my little ICP stage where I was constantly listening to nothing but ICP. I went through my Beatles where I was just like Beatles. Obviously, Michael Jackson and Jackson 5. New Kids on the Block when I was a kid. It's weird, like, you know, but I always like have a group that I'm really into. Like, at the time. And I think it's just, you know, now that I'm older, it's kind of like I'm into so much. It's insane. And I'll look back, you know, 20 years from now and look at the VC and say that was a changing point in my musical taste too, because there's so much that the VC has opened up for me and has for everybody. And Mikko, you know, you're awesome, and you know, I'm glad you're a part of this, because it's really it really is like a movement. I mean, the information that we share with each other and the musical taste that we all have together just creates this like beautiful monster of musical bliss, and it's amazing, man. And anybody who's not here, like I said in my previous video about whatever I was talking about, is missing out big time, because it literally has been one of the best experiences in my entire life to go on Facebook and chat with you guys, show stuff that I pick up, then come on here and make videos about it, get comments, get feedback, interact with you guys, do contests, laugh, fun, drama, hate, whatever. It's all in good fun, and it's really a great experience, and I thank every one of you from the bottom of my heart for letting me be involved in it. But you know, I don't know what to say, man. Music. It doesn't matter what it is, you know. It can be anything. I mean, really, I love it all. I mean, it's just music everywhere. I will have to say though, the first band that I ever really truly loved, and it was because of my parents, and I'll show it one more time, was the Grateful Dead. Named after Casey Jones, riding that train high on cocaine. I mean, it's something that'll stick with me for eternity. It's one of those things when I hear somebody talk bad about them, I get very defensive, because they are a great group. Now, I know if you dig really deep into psychedelic music, there's tons of groups out there that may be a little bit better, or, you know, more, whatever it is. But music's music. It's not a competition. It's about enjoying the music and having fun, and, you know, just learn. It really, music has taught me, you know, and that's something that maybe not a lot of people really view, because I was never good in school, and, you know, I'm not a great like punctuation and stuff. I'm not good at that type of thing. And just like, I learned vocabulary from music, you know, especially from rap music, I will have to admit, but like every type of music. And I've also learned things like history and just things about general knowledge that you know, I wasn't taught in school, or I wasn't taught by people. I was taught by music, you know. I am a product of music, and it's amazing, you know. I wouldn't trade that for fucking anything. Yeah. I don't think I mean, I definitely missed a ton of landmarks and a ton of things that really changed things, but I shared the good, the bad, and the embarrassing and ugly with you guys, so I hope you appreciate it. Thanks a lot for watching. Mikko, congratulations on the 200. As for my 100 subscribers contest, I'm yanking it, because no one's doing it, and I'm going to actually just go back and do just a thread response question, because no one seems like they want to send me pictures, so I'm just going to call the contest, and I'm going to wait till I hit 200, and I'll do a contest for my 200 instead of the 100. So I apologize to people who may have sent me a picture. There's just not enough, and I wanted to make a video with them. That was the whole point, and it's just not happening. So, Mikko, though, man, you're the man. The Vinyl Corner, you are the man. Congratulations, and I hope, you know, you get a million more, because you deserve them, man. Thanks a lot, dude. Peace. Sorry for this being so damn long.